Welcome to the Global Business Insights podcast, brought to you by PSL. I'm your host, Max Kent, and I'll be joined by my co-host, Dr. Charlotte de Brabant.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, funny that I was kind of a witness throughout the journeys.
Yeah, you are.
Always intensely, always for each milestone. Somehow I was there to witness it. And I think one aspect that you and I both share is very much being an inspirational leader, inspiring our next generation of talents. And as a host on BBC, you have the opportunity to reach a very broad audience. So how do you use your platform to inspire the next generation of talents? And what messages do you aim to convey through your work in the media?
So what I would say is that the mainstream TV platforms, so back in 2017, they definitely dominated the roost back then. But we know in the last 2 years how social media has transformed the landscape. You know, we've got our, LinkedIn's, you've got Facebook still used by older people, but there's our Instagram and TikTok. So it's trying to work out how best to get the message across. So obviously the BBC is great. It's a really well-respected brand globally. But in the last year or so, I've taken part in a Netflix dating show, and people might go, Bobby, why are you going on a dating show on Netflix? That's got nothing to do with maths. But actually, when I went on the show, I was there dating, obviously, but I went there as a maths teacher. So they filmed my lessons, they showcased my students, and now I've got people globally are like, oh, he's the maths teacher from Netflix. So I think with obviously BBC will probably always be my home network. But I think it's trying to work out which are the other platforms which can help showcase whatever skill set you have, whether it's Netflix. And in fact, I'm going to spend a lot of time in the next 6, 9, 12, 15 months thinking about how to really focus on my TikTok, because even with the BBC, when I have meetings with them, or Channel 4, ITV in the UK, they often tell me, Bobby, you're a good broadcaster, you're a good presenter, but for us to justify working with you in the long term, you've got to build up a following on these other platforms, because that's where younger people consume content there. So actually, if I want to reach people, and our message is always about, you can always achieve a lot more than you think you're capable of, and you can do it with a smile on your face. But if I'm only stuck on the BBC, I'll lose my audience. I've got to diversify. So doing things like Netflix and hopefully my early stages of my TikTok account, they're the ways of getting my message to more people.
Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I've got first-hand experience of that as well. And you say that older people use Facebook, which I had to kind of cringe at a bit because I use it all the time. Yeah. So, but I am trying to learn TikTok, and it's amazing the engagement you get on there. It's a bit of a dark art to me, so I'm right with you that you kind of need to learn it and work out how that works. So makes total sense, though, doesn't it, that if you've got to build that following, it's that currency, that sort of social media currency now is so important. When we come back to teaching, I've had first-hand experience of that as well. It's incredibly rewarding, as I'm sure you found it. It's also quite a challenge. How's that experience as an educator shaped that perspective? So you're working with empowering individuals and communities. How has that helped you sort of shaped your overall view?
So what I would say is teaching is the most rewarding thing I've done in terms of my spiritual and soul sense. But also it's the hardest thing I've ever done as well. So what I would say is now I'm a part-time teacher, but when I was full-time, the thing about teaching is if you're dedicated and you really are passionate about your subject and passing on those skills to young people, it can almost like drain your life force, because it's like you give everything to the classroom. I remember I used to work, even Fridays, I would be in the office as a head of department, but I'd be in the office till 11 o'clock, 11:15, and I had a couple of staff who still be there working late. So, and I think actually what I've learned in the last few years is almost like there's this phrase, have you heard if there's a plane going down and the gas masks come down, the oxygen mask, you should put it on yourself first, then the person next to you. And I actually realized, obviously, people that work in professions that are about helping others, you always want to help others, but you must make sure you look after yourself first. And I've learned that through some hard ways in my school experiences. And actually, I've got a lovely story about a student. In fact, a student shared this story with me. And I think it was after school one day, and I had a couple of students come for help afterwards, after school. And another student turned up. I'm like, oh, it's 4:30, it's nearly 5 o'clock. I need to head off. And I actually had to head off. I think I had some sort of meeting or dinner with someone. And I was leaving. And then one of the students was a bit upset. And another student came to me, and I don't know how, this student obviously has some sort of like they're like a guru. But they said to me, "Oh, sir, have you heard the story about the starfish?" I'm like, "No, no, no. What's the starfish story?" This is Jenny, like a 13-year-old child telling me the story. And it's about there's someone on a beach and they see starfish swimming towards the shoreline. And the sea's about to go back into the ocean, and these starfish are stranded. And they keep on swimming towards the surface, the beach. So as the person, you go around and picking up the starfish, you keep throwing them back into the sea because you want them to live. But some of these starfish, they keep crawling back. But if they stay on the shoreline, they'll eventually die, like big whales if they're stuck on a shoreline. And what the student told me, and I've always used this story, is that you can't save every single one of these starfish, but to that one starfish that you decide to throw back, or two, you've made a difference to them. So obviously, as an educator, I'd love to make every one of my students love maths and have a positive education experience. But the reality is, for some people, whatever reasons, it's not for them at that particular time. But as long as you can help that one student, that one person, you've made a real difference to someone's life.
Wow, I love it. My gosh, such a simple, inspirational story. Just continuing, because I love hearing your stories. Maybe you can share another inspirational insight of yours, another personal story or moment that was very much a turning point in your journey, and that has had a profound impact on your outlook and choices.
I think it's actually to do with how I have leveraged on my name in an interesting way. So, Booby Seagull is an intriguing name. I remember when I got a scholarship to Eton for my A levels, I was 16, and then some of my friends say, "Oh, at Eton," they're like, "Oh, Bobby," In fact, my first day was amusing because I grew up on a council estate in East London, and the cool kids in East London would wear like Nike, Adidas, Reebok, all those sportswear, but my family were quite financially hard up, so we couldn't afford that. But at 16, when I went to Eton, I was telling my parents, "Oh my God, I'm going to Eton. I need to wear the coolest gear." So I bought all the sort of Reebok, Adidas, Nike. My parents probably took a second mortgage to get all this. But I turned up to Eton and I look like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Like the kids are like, "What is going on?" This guy like looking like, I realized that's not the style there. So then they say, "Oh, Bobby, your name, Seagull. Tell us about your name." And actually, the thing that made me take ownership of myself, my identity, was they'd say, "Oh, where did you get their name from?" So my dad's surname is actually Jose. I think it's from the Catholic Portuguese connection. The Portuguese came to Kerala in South India in the 1600s. So my family are Catholic. So my name should be Bobby Jose, but my dad read a book called Jonathan Livingston Seagull. And I was telling my friends at Eton about the story. My dad read this book in the 60s and 70s. It's about an inspirational seagull that doesn't just do the normal seagull thing, eating fish and sleeping and mucking about, doing nothing, and stealing your chips maybe. But this seagull, Jonathan Livingston, learned how to fly, found meaning in his wings, and tried to teach other seagulls that almost like greater meaning in life through flying. And my dad loved that concept that he gave his kids that name. And then when I met my friends at Eton, I was explaining what my surname is and what it means that I'm going to learn something, and one day I'll teach someone that. And I never realized I'd become an educator, but that the mission of the seagull, Jonathan Livingston, of learning something yourself and teaching it to others, has always been with me. And that was the moment where I realized that's my mission. I didn't know how it would be a teacher, but it was planted there.
I think what really comes across with you, obviously, is it's so inspirational. It's that energy and the excitement that you've got for learning and for discovering new things, and that sounds like it's carried right through your whole career and your journey. Is there any specific moments where you thought that's a turning point? I know we've had a few already, but is there any more that have that sort of profound impact and changed your outlook and maybe shifted your direction somewhat?
I think it might be, actually, we did refer this to it earlier, but it was that moment at PwC when I taught new graduates. Because typically when people do the teaching of graduates, it tends to be just for 2-3 months. It's a break from your day-to-day corporate work, auditing, balance sheets, profit and loss. And it just gives you like a little bit of a breather. But for me, during those few weeks, or few months rather, it made me realize the skill set that I can add to the world, the value I can offer, is not just, obviously, I'd like to think in another life I'm probably quite a good financier. That was something that I worked hard towards. But where I came to life and actually added most value to people is being an educator. Again, I was teaching these young people financial concepts, about business and economics. So it's not school classroom things. It's for children. It's adult education. But it made me realize that actually communicating of ideas in a simple but enjoyable manner, that's where my real skill set and my life would be drawn towards.
I love it. And Bobby, for our listeners today who may be also navigating in their own career paths and life journey itself, what advice do you have based on your tremendous experience for those looking at also creating impactful choices for themselves professionally or in their personal life?
So, interestingly, I'm going to refer to one of my friends from Cambridge. It was a doctor, and he's turned to a really successful YouTuber called Ali Abdal. He's actually one of the most successful productivity gurus in the world, according to his book. His book is called Feel Good Productivity. And I actually have practiced his ideas without realizing that he had actually formalized this. But actually, he has I have this as well. It's a little note on my table. I leave it there. It says, "What would it look like if it were fun? What would it look like if it were fun?" And I think I've always carried this motto, because obviously in life, sometimes you've got difficult things to do, things that you don't want to do, deadlines, projects. But I always try and say, can you inject something to make it enjoyable? It could be simple as you're playing some really fun music with it, or you got a really great mug or cup of coffee, or you got a fun little biscuit, or afterwards you're going to watch your 30 minutes of your favorite comedy. Always think, what can you do to make that task more fun? Because I think in his life, often things are serious, but almost like Mary Poppins. She says a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. You got to take the medicine, and medicine isn't always great, but put a bit of sugar in it, and it makes it fun. So that's what I always tell my students or peers or people that are senior. What can you do to make what you're currently doing a little bit more fun?
I love it. Absolutely. It resonates so much with us, especially doing this podcast.
Yeah.
Right. It's also passion.
Yeah, it's fun.
It really does, and it's so inspirational to hear that. And I think that's something I've written that down as something I want to live by, because you're absolutely right. You just add that fun element to it, and it can change your perception of any situation, really, actually. So that's a real metaphor for life, I think, isn't it? So thank you for that. And the whole story of the whole podcast is a real testament to that perseverance, resilience, as I said, that energy and enthusiasm, that quest for learning as well. So that's real passion. And just as a conclusion to this episode, and I think we could probably talk all day, it's been absolutely fantastic.
Very good.
Any final pieces of wisdom or encouragement for anyone listening to this that's aspiring to make that positive impact on the world? Anything you could leave for those people?
Yes. So it's actually from a philosopher, British philosopher called Alan Watts, and he practiced Buddhism meditation. But he had this phrase, and it says, "Be sincere, not serious." So I'll tell you what it means: be sincere, not serious. And what an example could be, there's two examples. One is, if you've ever played Monopoly, and if there's someone that's really serious and checking, oh, you've broken this rule. Oh, no, you have to pay £201.01. If someone's being super serious about things, then you're like, oh, it's not fun to play with them. But also the other side is someone's a bit like, oh, you take all my properties in Monopoly. I don't care. I'm not playing. I'm not interested. That's also really not fun. You want someone, it's also trying to find that balance. Sincere is where something is important to you, but you approach it with a bit of a lightheartedness, and you're like, actually, it's okay if I don't always win. So it's that be sincere, not serious. And one example I read about was when things can go wrong when people are too serious. So this might be like a myth, but it's a great story. So there was a doctor who's a surgeon. His job was amputations, and this doctor was very serious, and everyone in staff respected him or her. And one stage they were amputating a leg from a patient, and all the nurses could see that they're amputating the wrong leg. But they were like, oh my God, this is so serious that, this doctor, he never smiles. He's always just focused. And they let the wrong leg be cut off. And in this particular hospital, they've now changed the ethos to being like a bit more lighthearted. In surgery, the doctor can play a bit of light classical or jazz or some pop music. And now nurses feel more comfortable if there's a doctor making a mistake, they'll correct them because it's a sincere environment, because the doctor obviously wants to make a real impact, but they're not just super serious. So it's like, is that finding that balance between being sincere but not serious? And I think people can tell the difference, because if someone's just serious for the sake of it, like, oh, why are they being miserable? But sincere, we love sincerity.
Thank you so much, Bobby. You were absolutely fantastic today, and thank you so much for joining us on this episode we definitely found it very inspiring. And thank you to our listeners once again for being here with us. And until we see each other again, until then, stay curious and keep exploring the world of fashion.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Bobby.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you.